Now, Lawrence, Wasps managed to pull off a good win at the weekend. We'll come on to England again in just a second, but good win over London Irish. First time in a while that we haven't had Wasps players in the England setup. Do you think there are any problems at the club? Do you think that if there have been, they're beginning to go right?
No, there's no problems. I mean, it's the first time in 91 tests that there have been no Wasps players, but you know, there's quite a few injuries within Wasps. I think if Ricky Flutie and Dominic Waldott hadn't been injured, there's every chance they may have been involved. Certainly Flutie, if not both, because the midfield area within England is still an area that needs to be sort of thought about.
Yeah.
Simon Shaw's been there or thereabouts. So no, I don't think that there is anything wrong at the club. If anything, Wasps around this time of year tend to lose about 7 or 8 players. So what they've done is take full advantage of the fact they've got a full complement and beat, you know, top of the table London Irish. So, you know, very good. I think Wasps have struggled with their consistency this year. They've taken one step forward, like they did against Irish or Leicester when they beat Leicester, then 2 steps back.
It was their first consecutive wins, wasn't it? I believe.
Yeah, and there's 1 or 2 games they've lost by a point or so. They lost away to Gloucester by a point, and you know, it's such a competitive league at the moment. I mean, even that one win has taken them from 8th, 9th up to 6th. You know, and they're within striking distance of the top 4. You know, if they'd won one more game, which they gave away a penalty against Gloucester in the last second of the game, which Nicky Little kicked, or Nicky Robinson kicked, and they'd be 3rd. You know, so is there anything wrong? Not much. Just some very competitive teams playing very well, and hopefully the Wasps victory against London Irish will be a springboard now to go on. They've got a tough game this weekend against Bath away, and Bath will be kicking themselves after losing to Sarries. So that's just the nature of the Aviva Premiership. It's competitive, it's compelling, and you know, fingers crossed we'll get a good result.
And the law interpretations, we're beginning to see some flowing rugby this season.
Yeah, it's been really breath of fresh air, isn't it, really? I mean, people like me would have been long gone with these laws. No, you just got to roll away, haven't you? And it's you know, it's tough sometimes, but you know, it's very consistent, and we're seeing lots more tries being scored, and you know, it's proven to be a good spectacle. Certainly,
and we've seen more tries scored at Twickenham as well. In terms of the autumn and coming into this game against South Africa, do you think it will all mean nothing if we stutter and don't somehow cross the line against South Africa?
Well, it won't all mean nothing, because once you've produced a performance like we did against Australia, we've definitely raised the bar in terms of England and our expectations of England. And you know, we came back down to earth of sorts against Samoa, hard fought, grafted our way to victory, but
two very different styles.
Two very different styles of winning. And listen, if we were to win, it would be the icing on the cake, and it would give us, set us up really nicely for the Six Nations. If we were to lose, it would definitely leave a bitter taste in the mouth, but wouldn't be a disaster, because it means that South Africa would have played very well. But I don't think there's a better time for us to be playing South Africa. You know, they're at the end of a very long season. They've had some issues with drug testing. They've got the air of a team that are pretty keen to get on the plane home and you know, get some much needed rest. You know, England on the flip side are playing with confidence and belief, and it's a chance for us to beat one of the Southern Hemisphere, take a big scalp at Twickenham. So, you know, my memory serves me well. We played South Africa in 2008. We got absolutely pummeled by about 40 points. 3 or 4 of the players who were likely to start on Saturday were playing that day. Nick Easter, Tom Palmer, Danny Kerr, maybe James Haskell. So, you know, you've got to bottle that feeling up and come back and really, really use that as motivation. All the coaches, Martin Johnson, they were all involved 2 years ago, and this is a chance for us to really, you know, produce a decent performance against one of rugby's superpowers. So I think you can't
world champions.
You can't let that opportunity pass you by. And make no mistake, they will make it hard for us. They've lost to Scotland. They've got seething criticism, not just from the press here, but their own press back home. They'll be absolutely livid with the way this tour has gone, and they'll come out, you know, keen to prove a point. But I just get the feeling that they're a team under pressure, and this England team can really turn the screw and expose some of the frailties that seem to have crept into their game. They're missing 1 or 2 of their best players. They are without doubt missing their scrum half, Dupree, who was the real sort of driver behind the World Cup success and the Lions tour, and it's a good time to play them, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you mentioned your mate Martin Johnson there. The results are now started to come for him, but it's been a little while. Do you think, with hindsight, was he right to take that job on so soon after being the legend that he was?
Well, it's whether he's right or not, he took the job, and it's and it's a tough job.
Would you have taken it?
And it's a tough job, and it's I mean, it wasn't offered to me, so it's a rhetorical question, really. But I mean, it was difficult for him, because no matter how many caps you've got as an international player, no matter how good you are, there's still a bit of learning to be done, and in the early games, I would say I'm sure he would admit that there's a bit of learning to be done. End of story. And I think he's come through the other side of that, and he's got a much better sense of how to run the show, and he's been very loyal. And I think he's a guy that's always had a fairly decent grip on reality, as opposed, apart from certain other players. And I think when England play well, like they did against Australia, he knows that they're not suddenly world beaters overnight. And similarly, when they were playing badly and getting beaten a couple of years ago, that they're not the worst team in the world. So he's a really good guy for managing and measuring expectations, and certainly internally, he's done that. But it's nice to see that there's a glint of a smile in his face again, because he's not that ugly when he smiles. So
just coming out from underneath that frown.
Yeah, exactly.
And finally, one of my concerns is that over the next 10 months, obviously, we're going to hopefully get this consistency now that we've seen since the summer. But once we come up and through that World Cup, we're going to potentially lose a few players. Mike Tyndall, perhaps, Lewis Moody, maybe. You'd imagine Simon Shaw, but he might still go until he's 50. Is this team going to be transitional again in another 10 months' time? Well,
listen, I think every game is a new experience for this team, because as England get better and they become more consistent, the expectation levels go up. They've suddenly become the tag of favourites. England have got some big tests ahead of them. Forget the World Cup. They've got the Springboks on Saturday. They've got to go down to Wales on a Friday night and prove that they can do what Australia have already done, prove they can do what South Africa have already done, and prove what New Zealand are likely to do, which is to beat Wales in Cardiff on a Friday night. And England have got to do that in the Six Nations. That will be a real test. They've got to go to Ireland and prove that they can do what South Africa have done and what New Zealand have done, and win over in Dublin. And those are two things that England haven't been able to do for a while now. So let's park the World Cup for a second. I know it's nice to get excited about the World Cup, but the development of the team is about doing things that for the first time that they've never done before. And winning in Wales and winning in Ireland will be a first for England. So, if they can win on Saturday against South Africa, that will set them up really nicely and give them the belief that they can then take that journey. They've already won in Sydney, which is many good English rugby players have never won in Sydney, and that is a real feather in their cap. But they now need to move that forward and take their game on the road. So, big challenges ahead, but much easier when you win him.
Absolutely. One final question, in terms of your old role in the back row, how do you see England's current back row fitting together? We've seen Haskell come in, there's Tom Croft, Nick Easter.
Yeah.
What do you think is the right balance for England?
Well, I mean, the thing about the back row is that they're sort of glory boys that get all the credit, but really the back row plays well when numbers 1 to 5 play well. And I remember as a back rower that you've got to give the guys in front of you a real pat on the back, because if you play well, then it's because these guys are really doing their job properly. So that's good news for England. That said, the balance of the back row looks good. Tom Croft, I think, gives them dynamism and ball carrying ability and extra line out ability, and the combination of Nick Easter, Lewis Moody and Croft is great. What I would say is that if England has to become a really strong force in world rugby, then you're going to need to do it with more than just 3 players in the back row. And those 3 might be the starters for now, but certainly, as you say, as this team evolves, in a few months' time, 12 months' time, Lewis Moody didn't start the World Cup final, but he finished it. Nick Easter might start the World Cup final, but he might not finish it. So I think that we need to find more back row players that are going to fit in there, whether that's James Haskell, whether that's Tom Rees, whether that's Henry Fury, whether that whoever that might be. We need a real core group that are going to take England forward. But certainly the signs are very encouraging.
Fantastic. Lawrence, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.